This week on Finesse, Jon reveals how to track down and trigger mobile fall crappie with a simple and surefire system that's guaranteed to help you catch more fish.
There he goes. Got him. What a cool way to start. You know, all I'm doing here is driving around and looking for these fish, but there's a couple tricks that go along with it. Number one, I started with a jig and I had to change my mind. Really nice crappie to start. I'm gonna lip him because I don't want to lose him. Really nice fish. Look at that. Perfect fall crappie. That's a perfect eating size fish. But here's the thing, there's a trick to how I'm fishing these fish. I started with a jig and I started by moving around and trying to find some fish, okay? Well, I was finding fish. Problem was, I just wasn't able to make them bite. So now I flipped over to a float. But what I used that jig to do was move along and find them. Now I kind of have some idea of where these fish are sitting. We got a little blood coming out of him, so he's gonna go home with us. But here's the thing now. Now I kind of have a pretty good idea of where some fish are, but I'm still on the move, okay? Here's the thing. If you get to a point where you decide to sit still for too long, these fish are moving. This time of the year, they're moving because of this. Earlier in the year, when you found your crappies, when you got on your spot where you were catching crappies, usually them fish were gonna stay there for quite a while because they were relating to weeds or some type of structure. Well now, there's no such thing as relating to weeds or structure. These fish right now, they're just chasing bait around. They've left the weeds. If you look along the shorelines, weeds are all dying. So what's happened is they've bailed off of the weeds and now they're into that time of the year where they're just gonna roam open water. And when they start roaming open water, you gotta roam with them to find them. If you don't roam looking for them, man, I'll tell you what, it can be an awful long day of just sitting in one spot. There he is. Look at that. Came up and met me. Ooh, that feels like a pretty good one. But let me tell you, I've had a couple today that I've thought, ooh, that feels like a pretty good one. It was a little one, and then I've had a couple that oh yeah, it is a good one. Look at this, come here, buddy. That's a good one right there. Look at that. Another great crop. Man, I'll tell you, the location we're fishing today, this can be a little bit tricky. It's another perfect fish, perfect dinner fish. But here's the thing, we're not far away from these fish getting out in holes. In fact, on an average year by now, these fish should be out in the deep holes. So when I'm looking at lakes to go crappie fish, I'm looking at lakes that have a defined hole that's gonna give these fish a place to go to chase bait as soon as all the weeds die. But here's what happens. Right now we're at 60-degree water temp. When we get into those high 50s, mid 50s, those fish are gonna get out into this hole, but they're not there yet. They're not there yet because the water temps haven't gotten cold enough. The bait is just finally leaving the weeds at this 60-degree mark, okay? But what I'm doing right now is I'm just fishing a flat that's adjacent to that hole. And all I'm doing is wandering around this flat, and these fish, they're not all packed up like they're gonna be soon when they get out there. When they get out there in that hole, they're gonna be a heck of a lot easier to catch than they are right now. What I'm doing right now is just moving around, looking here, looking there. When I see pods of bait on the graph, usually I'm seeing 2 or 3, 4 fish underneath there. Those are crappies. Now soon, like I say, when they get to that hole, they'll get all packed up together. But for now, that's what I'm looking for. I'm just wandering around this flat, 24 to 26 feet of water. It's a simple deal. It's just adjacent to that hole, and that's what you want to look for. If you can find something like that when the water temp's in that median range before it drops off, this can be a gold mine. I mean, I'm sitting here all by myself. I watched one boat come in this morning, go out and mill around out in that hole, and they didn't see them and they left. Well, that's because they're not there yet. They're on this flat. They're gonna be there. Give it another week of cold nights and they're gonna get there. But you look around, the trees are just starting to change colors. As soon as you start getting full color, I'll tell you what, those fish, they're all gonna be in that deep stuff. That's kind of a telltale sign. There he is. Got him. Look at that. That is really cool. And I want to tell you what's so neat about what I just did. So some fish came through here high and I was just putting new bait on and I saw these fish high. So what I did is I just fished through my float and I just jigged it like I was jigging without a float. And what happened is this high crappie came through, this little school of them, he saw it and came up and hit it. And you know, that's one of the neatest things about this time of the year is these fish, you'll get them high, you'll get them low. And that fish there, I saw him high. And when I say high, he was about 7 feet off the bottom. So all I did was I looked at where my knot was as I was dropping down, okay? And then I lifted about 7 feet above it. And all I did is more or less jigged right through the slip float. And jigging right through that slip float, I got him to bite. There he goes. Look at that. Got him. Little lull. Had to do a little bit of moving around for a little bit to find this fish. You know, sometimes, oh yeah, another good one. Look at this one. Settle down there, buddy. Look at that. Another great fish. Sometimes you go through these little lulls and you know, it's a horse apiece, right? If you're sitting on a big bunch of fish, it makes sense to sit there. But the fish that I was sitting on just kind of dissipated on me a little bit, and I just had to go hunting again. That's a great fish. I'm gonna chuck him in the live well, and then let me show you what we're using, because this is pretty simple at this time of the year. Number one is these fish are working different depths, okay? And when they're working different depths, what I mean is sometimes they'll suspend a little bit, sometimes they'll be down toward the bottom. So the best way to fish them is with a float, because I can control my depth no matter how far away I am from the boat versus just having to control it by being right over the side. Now I can still, when I'm right over the side, when I see fish, just lift up right through the slip float and I can catch them at whatever depth they're at if they come through higher than what I'm set at. But this is a Thill crappie cork. Man, I'll tell you what, just my favorite panfish float. It's made of the finest balsa. You can detect every single bite. I mean, they barely touch it and you see it. A couple cool things about the crappie cork. Number one, today I'm using it as a slip float because we're fishing deep water. But if it's earlier this year, say when those fish were up in the weeds, you can use it as a spring float. It comes with a spring on it as well. And when you buy this crappie cork, it's got a slip knot right up here on the top. So you don't have to buy extra slip knots. The slip knot's already there for you. And this spring is available. So you're gonna be able to choose whether you wanna use it as a fixed float or a slip float. Another cool thing about the crappie cork, right on the side, it tells you exactly what the weight it will float is. And this one here that I'm using today is a 1/8. And then the high vis paint, man, I'll tell you what, you can see this thing from a mile away. Down on the business end, it's a pretty simple deal. 16th ounce Lindy live bait jig. This is one of my favorite jigs, but one of the things I'll tell you I think is really important with crappies is you'll notice a lot of times I just give a pull and I move my knot. If my knot gets over here so that my jig's hanging straight down, I always turn it back up this way to get it to hang that way with the minnow. I think that makes a big difference. Keeps that minnow looking natural down there and swimming along. All said and done, this is a really, really easy tactic. I mean, it's just about getting on top of fish, figuring out the right depth, and setting up on them. There's a good bunch under us right now. There's actually a fish coming up to meet me. Bait's going down, fish is coming up. There he grabbed it. He stopped it. I watched him stop it. Got him. I watched him grab it part way down. You can see it right on the screen. That is so cool when you can fish right under the boat like this. This fish just came up, grabbed it, and all of a sudden the bobber just stopped and the line stopped going through the float. Getting to it. Oh yeah, look at this one. This might be one of the better ones of the day. I mean, they've all been about the same size. They're all a lot of 12-inch fish I'm catching here. There's not a lot of giants, you know, I mean 11 to 12-inch great eater size fish, but what an awesome fish. Great way to wrap up a day. You know, this fall crappie fishing, this is something else if you can get out and do it. It's a lot of fun. And I mean, like I said, it's not just about the fishing. It's about getting one of those last trips of the year and getting out and just enjoying everything around you at this time of the year. That's a great fish right there. This is what you can do too. You can put together one last really nice fish fry. That's an awesome way to wrap it up.